14.3. This includes my session plan, my actual training session, and my program reviews by James Boxford. Assignment 14.3 by James Boxford. My client aims. I designed some targets for my client, and these were across the whole 6-week training program. My client wanted to improve her jump height by 5 centimeters. This is so that she is able to beat her opponent to the ball while she plays netball when jumping. And this is crucial as she is a goal attack, which means she is largely involved in the opponent's D and will need to be jumping higher than their goal attack or the goalkeeper. My client also wanted to improve her speed across the court by 2 seconds, and this is from her D to her opposition's D. She said she wanted to do this in case she ever changed position to a centre, and the centre is allowed in all 3 quarters. And she also said she wanted to lose at least 2 kilograms off of her weight at the moment. Her current weight was 54.1 kilos, and she said she wanted to drop that to at least 52. These targets are specific to my client's aims because she wants to be better at netball. And by having these aims, they should be able to help her improve. For example, her jump height. If she's able to jump higher, she's able to reach more balls that her opponents will not. This means that she will become a better netball player. I will also be testing them every 3 weeks to see for improvement. So, for example, for the height, I'll be testing the vertical jump every 3 weeks. And for the speed across the court, it'll be the 35-meter sprint. And for her weight, to check she's on track, I'll be weighing her every week. The specific session aims. In the session, I want my client to work in a training zone of 60 to 80%. 1, this burns fat, but 2, it also helps her improve her aerobic fitness. And anaerobic also. This will mean she'll be able to improve her speed across the whole court. I want my client to be able to improve the speed of a 5-rep T-bar run by 2 seconds. The T-bar run will be later explained throughout the video. I also want her to improve her ladder speed by 2.5 seconds. The ladder speed improvement will help her move across the court quicker because it will help her build muscle in her legs. In the session, I'll be looking for my client to improve her speed, and this will help her when she plays netball because it also will help her move across the court quicker, but it should also build leg muscle, which is useful for when she just starts to learn how to jump properly. Here is my example of a risk assessment. The activity that I will be doing with my client is an SAQ session. It will be done in a sports hall, and I will be leading it. So the first hazard I identified is a fire, and everybody's at risk from a fire. The controls to put in place will be, I will inform everybody who is around of the nearest exits, and especially my client, and where a meeting point is if a fire occurs. And I will make sure that everything is working correctly, so we have fire extinguishers. The likelihood of this occurring is a 1. This means that there is a very low chance. However, the outcome of this is very high, a 3, because this can lead to severe injury and death in some cases. This gives it a risk rating of 3. A risk rating is occurred when you times the number of the likelihood by the outcome. For example, the likelihood for a fire is 1, whereas the outcome is 3. This gives a risk rating of 3. There could be something else that could have a likelihood of 2 and an outcome of 3 that would give a risk rating of 6. The actions necessary for a fire. Make sure everybody knows the evacuation plans and fire extinguishers are present and working correctly, and also fire doors are always kept shut and working as well. The next hazard will be a collision with the wall. My client is at risk from this. My client is the only one at risk from this because she will be the only one that will be doing the drills. I will be demonstrating them, but I will not be doing them at a high intensity where they may collide with the wall. I will ensure that my client is told to be careful when they are running about or moving between the drills, and also to watch out. The likelihood of this happening is a 1, however the outcome of this is a 2. This is because it can lead to things like nosebleeds, or it could also lead to concussion as well. This gave a risk rating of 2. The actions necessary. I'll inform my client to watch out when they're running or moving around, and to always look up when they feel like they're going to stop. The next hazard will be a wet floor or a spillage, and my client will be at risk from this. I'll make sure that everybody keeps a lid on their bottle and watch out for people spilling things, and if something gets spilt, I'll ask someone to deal with it. The likelihood of this happening is a 2, and the outcome of this is also a 2. The likelihood is a 2 because other spillages like sweat can occur, and this is what I would expect my client to sweat due to the fact they'll be working at 60 to 80% of their maximum heart rate, and this means they'll be becoming hotter and hotter, which means they'll have to sweat. The outcome is a 2 because when you fall over, you can hurt things. You could also break bones, and you may even, in severe cases, slip discs in your back. This gives a risk rating of 4. This is quite a high risk rating for a spillage, but due to the nature of the sports hall floor, it cannot go unnoticed. The actions necessary. I will make sure that people are drinking water outside of the hall and making sure all lids have bottles on, and that people's shoes are dry before they enter, and I will check my client's shoes are dry before she starts each high intensity drill. I will ask her to say if she's spilt something, or ask anyone to say if they've spilt something, so it can be dealt with quickly. The final hazard I identified would be tripping over equipment, and everybody is at risk from this. I will tell my client and anyone else to make sure that they are looking where they are going and looking where equipment has been laid out before they come in. Also, I will ask them to, whilst they're doing a drill, to make sure they're watching whilst focusing on the drill as well. This is important, for example, hurdles. My client will be going forward over hurdles, but she could also be going backwards. I'll ask her to make sure that she lifts her knees high enough when she jumps so that she can avoid the hurdle and not hurt herself. The likelihood of this happening is a 2. This is because of the height of the hurdles and also the ladders. The ladders can become quite slippery if you tread on the strut, and if you tread on the strut, you may fall over. This gives an outcome of 2 just due to the falling over nature of this. The action is necessary. I will clear up obstructing equipment after it has been used, and this is to make sure no one trips over and causes themselves harm, because if somebody trips over, then I become liable. My client park you. Here's my client's medical information that I did before the session began. This helps me see what my client's medical history looks like and if they're restricted from doing any activities. This is not the whole medical details part of my client's PARQ, but it is the main content. There may be other things on there, it just depends on the nature of the session that will be being done. So here are my client's scores from some health fitness tests that I did. I identified my client's resting heart rate was at 90 beats per minute. Her resting blood pressure was 122/66, and her peak flow was 360 litres a minute, and her BMI came out as healthy after her height was 160 centimetres and her weight is 54.1 kilograms. Back to the heart rate. My target heart rate zones for my client are as followed. 50% is 147 beats per minute, 60% is 158 beats per minute, 70% is 169 beats per minute, 80% 180 beats per minute, 90% 192 beats per minute, and 100% 203 beats per minute. I've gone from 50% to 100% to see what my client can see for what she needs to be working at. However, I will only be requiring my client to work at 60 to 80% of her heart rate. However, if she's finding a drill easier, I may ask her to go up a bit harder. Or if she's finding it too hard, I may say drop down to 70 to 50. Now we'll be comparing these to the national average for a 17-year-old female. So the average resting heart rate for a 17-year-old girl is 72 beats per minute. I'll go on to the training zones after. The resting blood pressure is 120/80. The peak flow result for someone of that age will be 440 litres a minute. And the BMI for the average height of 169 and a weight of 60 kilos will be considered healthy. The BMI is very hard for a national average, so I have used results from the average height and average weight and then put them into a BMI calculator. Now the heart rate zones. So 50% will be 138 beats per minute, 60% will be 151 beats per minute, 70% 164 beats per minute, 80% 177 beats per minute, 90% 190 beats per minute, and 100% 203 beats per minute. I will now be describing the exercise session content. So my session will be inside a sports hall. I'll only be requiring a small area of the sports hall. At most, I'll need at least one badminton court. I'll need 10 hurdles, 15 cones, one SAQ ladder, one yoga mat, and two netballs. I'll explain later. I'll explain later on what I'll be doing with this equipment. The health and safety considerations I'll need to take into account. I'll need to inform my client of the walls that will be surrounding her. I will also need to make sure they are well stretched and a good warm-up occurs. This prevents any injuries from occurring. I will also need to check she has the correct clothing on and that all jewellery is being removed. My client will also need to be aware that she may not be the only person using the hall, so that other drills may intervene hers. Also, there will be netballs passed to and she will be receiving them to her, and she'll be receiving them. But she needs to always be aware. However, I will tell her when I'm about to pass the netball. The emergency procedures or contingency plan. So if there was a fire, I would inform my client of the procedure for the facilities that I'll be using. So the meet will be on the netball courts out of the front by the car park. If there is an injury, I will judge the severity of the injury and then decide whether serious action needs to be taken. Say a first aid kit could fix the issue. If there is a muscular injury, then I'll ask the client what muscular injury they have and the severity of it, and I'll adapt my session if they feel like they can't continue. If they say that they are unable to continue, I will have to end my session there. However, I may have to adapt it so they could do something else. So the issues that are arising from my risk assessment. So the walls are restricting my client. She needs to be aware of this. Spillages from water or sweat, and also a fire. These are quite large issues. However, they can be contained and controlled by doing certain things.